So this video for the social cultural section of the ASPE course is part of the physical activity subtopic, and we're going to look at what we call BAHLs and its connection with participating in physical activity. So the specification actually includes quite a lot of information in terms of participation in physical activity. We'll look at these factors in a different video, and this video will look at these bottom sort of four sections. So what are the benefits, and what is a sedentary lifestyle, what does it mean to use the FIT principle, and perhaps what are barriers that might reduce people participating in physical activity. So do we have any issues culturally today in terms of physical activity and participation? Well, there's a glaring issue that's been publicised a lot by the media in terms of obesity levels. Now, this graph shows just a steady incline of obesity levels of adults, but what we also know is that young people and children are very much following the same pattern, and actually the pattern probably is initiated from children. So children who are overweight or obese will grow up to probably be overweight or obese adults. So it's quite a serious factor, and to be honest, you need to know that it doesn't just relate to the fact that somebody might be overweight. There are a lot of associated diseases and medical problems and health problems that come along with something like obesity. So what do you think? We will have discussion. I just want you to throw this out as a question to you about whether you think that young people are more or less physically active in the 21st century, and maybe give reasons for whatever you think, whether you think we're more active or less active. I mean, this cartoon actually suggests that maybe there's an inactivity or obesity epidemic, because Generation X is what we'd refer to as the generation of children who have grown up in a technological world where everything is automated, where everything, you don't tend to do anything manually. You watch TV, you travel with cars. So it's a very different world than maybe a 19th or a 20th century person grew up in. So food for thought, really. Have a think and come up with a few ideas yourself. So what is BAHLs? BAHLs stands for Balanced Active Healthy Lifestyle, and this is really critical because this BAHLs principle underpins the whole of the AS and the A2 syllabus. So there may well be questions asking you to link certain bits of the syllabus specifically to a BAHLs related answer. So having a balanced, active, healthy lifestyle involves some do's and some don'ts. So the do's would be: have a balanced diet, make sure you sleep sufficiently, make sure you exercise sufficiently, don't get injured by doing too much or not taking care of yourself, have a really healthy social life where you interact with friends, avoid getting illness because you are taking care of yourself, and make sure that your work-life balance is appropriate. And then there are the don'ts. So obviously don't use drugs, don't have alcohol in excess, don't smoke, and don't live a stressful lifestyle. You've got to take control of these things and try to, in some cases, reduce or remove them from your lifestyle in order to have a balanced, active, healthy lifestyle. So thinking about physical activity levels, you may be familiar with this FIT principle from GCSE or BTEC courses you've done. FIT basically refers to different variables to monitor or measure physical activity levels. So frequency, how often you exercise in a week, the intensity of which you exercise, so how hard you exercise, so how often, how hard. The time element would be how long you exercise for, and the final T is for type, what sort of activity you do. So these are principles which we need to know about, but also we need to be able to apply to both children and adults. So let's look at the recommended FIT values, or the levels of physical activity that the government and the British Heart Foundation recommend that we do. So let's look at kids first. So young people are recommended to exercise daily, so 7 days a week, of a moderate intensity. Now, moderate intensity could refer to perhaps exercising that you can just about have a bit of a chat whilst you're exercising. If you can't talk, then you're probably working too hard. So the talk test is a good way of monitoring whether you're working moderately. They should do an hour a day, so 60 minutes of activity a day, and that activity should include a mixture of aerobic activity, some higher impact activity, so running and jumping type activities, because those activities will put healthy stress on bones, and that healthy stress on bones will make those bones ultimately stronger. And also they should do some degree of muscle strengthening and flexibility work. So a real range of activities, including some higher impact, to maximise peak bone density. What about adults then? Is it different for adults? Well, a little bit. Obviously, the more adults do, the better, but essentially 3 to 5 days a week. I think if you say 5 days a week, that's safe. Again, of moderate activity level intensity, and for 30 minutes as a minimum. So that again, they could do more and that would be great, but in an exam you'd be asked to talk about 5 days a week, moderate activity, 30 minutes, and obviously the activity they do should be something that they enjoy. I'm not sure how much it matters what you do, whether you go cycling or walking or swimming, but preferably something that uses large muscle groups, particularly if you can, a rhythmic activity. So we need to know about this acronym OPE, because this helps us understand what things might affect whether people do or don't take part in regular physical activity. And obviously this is the socio-cultural strand of the specification, so we're looking at what societal or what cultural factors might affect people in terms of their participation. Well, this image actually is relating to adults, but there is a point behind this image. So this relates to the lighter colours being lower proportion of activity, and the darker colours where the adults do a higher level of participation. And what you can see, there are clearly different sociocultural or geographical areas where participation is higher or lower, and there might well be reasons for this. So what are the things that affect people's participation in physical activity? So opportunities then, we said opportunities. What actually does it mean? What does opportunities mean? Well, opportunity refers to the chance, or having the chance to participate, and that might mean you've got the chance because you've got enough time, or you've got the choice to, or you've got the ability or the skill to, or the money to do those things. So these are not particularly tangible, they're not sort of things you can get your hands on, but they are factors that might affect your opportunity or the chances you have in terms of participating in physical activity. So provision then, slightly different. Provision involves slightly more tangible things. So these are the tools or the conditions to enable you to take part, and might include having the facilities at your doorstep, or equipment, or enough coaches, or activity courses that you can access to take part. So provision is a little bit more of a physical element of a factor. And then we have esteem. So this is a little bit more psychological and emotional. And esteem, you might know, refers to confidence. So esteem refers to having the self-belief or the confidence to take part. And I'm convinced that this is probably one of the most powerful reasons why people might not take part in physical activity, and we'll talk about barriers in a moment. So esteem looks at confidence, looks at self-belief, respect from others. If people don't look at you with positivity, if you're a disabled person and you wish to take part in activity and you get disrespect from people, that might be a factor that stops you or drives you on. Your status in society and your perception of yourself or the activity. I shouldn't like dance because I'm a male. So these are factors that might affect people's participation. And we need to look at the benefits of physical activity. So there are actually 4 categories of benefits which you absolutely will need to learn. The physical benefits, here are some examples. So certain activities will help develop your core strength or your muscular strength or your endurance, or reduce the chances of you getting coronary heart disease, or they might increase your flexibility. Pretty much if you think about components of fitness, you get a lot of clues as to the physical benefits. And then we've got personal benefits, which are very much to do with the character of the person. So increasing your self-esteem, or teaching you self-control and self-discipline, or giving you some motivation, or improving your pride. You love the challenge of certain activities. So personal refers really a bit more to character benefits. And examples absolutely of these things should give the activity which gains the benefits. So don't just say these benefits, say what activity gets these benefits. And the third and fourth benefits, mental. So this is more cognitive, the brain functioning, the thinking skills that you might develop. So problem solving or decision making. Actually, it can improve your academic performance also. And then finally, you might relate to these, so the social benefits of physical activity, meeting new friends, communication skills, working in a team, being a leader, being open-minded to people and people being different. So there's an awful lot of benefits to physical activity. However, there are barriers to participation. So if we think about our opportunity, provision and esteem, these can all be related in a negative way to perhaps why people don't take part in physical activity. Maybe their religion or race doesn't encourage, if you think of Muslim females, they're certainly not encouraged into physical activity. Or stereotypes, the female rugby player, the male dancer, there's all sorts of barriers which might stop somebody being physically active. The time, the money, the equipment, the provision. So have a think about those in terms of barriers to participation, or things that might be lacking and stop people participating.